I fear in current pop culture standards, where there is a shift away from body positivity because it has jumped off the fucking cliff into insanity land, and a shift back towards shaming, bullying, Jillian Michaels' Biggest Loser style era, on top of instead of muscle mommies, we want to be real thin, Pilates arms, skinny talk. I fear that death toll is going to climb. Hello and welcome back to a podcast where I talk about rediscovering your life in your 30s, the chaos of just living right now, and everything else in between. And today's episode, I'm gonna get into it, but first, I would like to do a little bit of keeping, if you will. I have been clipping this podcast and sharing it in shorts and things like that, and one of the clips that I made recently was about the tendency I have, the defiance mode activated thing, right? If someone tells me I can't do something, I'm immediately more motivated to go off and do it. So many trolls, so many were in that comment section, specifically commenting on my weight, which is funny because I'm used to getting that on my fitness pages. I really am. I am used to people commenting on my body size. I'm used to people commenting on, like, that I don't look like a trainer. Like, those are things that I'm used to dealing with. I didn't think on an episode that had nothing to do with fitness, people would be coming in and trolling my body size. I mean, I am on the internet, so it happens, right? But the funny thing is like, I'm actively working on that right now. Like, I don't talk about it, obviously, on this channel that much. I mean, I might do progress updates or whatever as we go through this 6 month journey that I'm on right now, but like, I'm working on it. And so many people were, I understand clients that get very, very deterred from being in the gym and things like that, being a content creator in the fitness space. Because even if you are just someone sharing your journey, you're gonna get people coming in and saying stupid shit, right? There were so many people in that comment section that, I just blocked. Honestly, I'm very liberal with the block button as of late, but they were like, you can't drink water, you can't run a mile. And all of them were about running, too, which was very weird. They're like, you can't run fast, you can't run a mile, you can't, like, drink water. Like, I do that every fucking day. What do you mean I can't drink water? What the fuck? Like, that's not the end all be all to fitness. And then, like, one was like, you can't have a dong or something like that. I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit. Like, I'm not trans. I do dress a little mask every now and again, but my hair was also down, and that wasn't one of the episodes I was wearing a backwards baseball cap. Like, that was so weird. The internet is weird, right? The internet as a whole is weird. And I think that kind of is a perfect segue into today's topic. Because today's topic is actually related to fitness for once. And it will kind of connect back to pop culture and things like that as well. I was recently, as most of the internet was, watching season 4 of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And now I watched this knowing the first allegations with Taylor Frank Paul. Like, I knew that. That's all covered in season 1. If there are new allegations and things like that, I don't know if I'm going to continue to support the show. But I personally find it interesting to watch the show because I have family in Utah. I understand Utah culture. I understand that the ladies in that show represent Utah culture a lot better than most people want to admit. Utah culture is toxic. Utah culture is judgmental and almost like you're living in a high school every day of your life. And not to, completely go into the chaos realm of like Utah culture and Mormon mentalities and schoolgirl bullying and things like that, because I've gone into a little bit of that, of what I faced against my own aunts even, and my mom, and with body shaming being a core component of a lot of the hits I took from my aunts and my mom. Body shaming and body checking and just body obsession, beauty obsession, normal, like looking normal, like the perfect Mormon family, that kind of culture is a lot stronger in Utah, but deeply bred in anyone who has ever been an active member in the church at any point in their lives. That is something you have to do active work to deconstruct. However, this episode's not about the LDS church. Well, it does connect because I wanted to do this topic because of what's going on, or what was going on, because to my understanding, she has gone and got help and is doing better and things like that. I don't know. I don't know her. But the episode that really struck me when I binge watched season 4 of Secret Lives was Layla and her, as she worded it, addiction to GLP-1s. I have been a creator in the fitness space that was always very pro GLP-1s for weight loss. Not from the sense that I would want them to be overprescribed, but just from the sense that they're a tool. Just like bodybuilders have their scales that they take everywhere with them to weigh their food, or we have calorie tracking apps, GLP-1s are a tool to people who have tried everything else and just simply cannot do it. Someone going after a GLP-1 that has lots of weight to lose is simply gaining assistance to do so. At the end of the day, you are not going to maintain that weight loss. Same with bariatric surgery. It is the same that at the end of the day, if you do not make the lifestyle changes to support that, you're not going to maintain it or ever get off that medication. And some people, it might be better that they never do get off of it because of the mental aspect that I understand a lot of people have experienced with GLP-1s. However, in Layla's case, from the time that at least I've been following her, which is season 1, I didn't really know much about mom talk before the show dropped. So I don't really know a lot about these ladies, but I do know a lot about Utah culture and the obsession with being skinny and being dainty and being pretty and things like that. So I do understand that this was probably very deep rooted in her prior to the show and the pressures of being on reality TV and everything else. However, to everyone screaming, what physician would prescribe a GLP-1 to, a rail thin human being? Even if her description of that GLP-1 usage was, I needed to lose the last 20 pounds. Every person with an eating disorder will always have that excuse for everything they do. When it comes to a restrictive eating disorder, binging is different. Binging is more emotional. Restrictive, you will always find the excuse to keep doing what you're doing and not make it a problem. I have 20 pounds. I'll stop when I get to my goal. I felt sick, so I forced it. There will always be some sort of excuse you can use. And I say that as someone who used... I'm gonna be totally open and honest with y'all. I am towing a line right now. My deficit is very, very steep because I don't like to be in a deficit and worry about my food long term. I like to do extreme things to get to my answer and then maintain it after the fact with healthy habits. I don't like doing it the slow way. And that is largely due to the fact that I have been both anorexic and orthorexic. Tracking turns on the orthorexia, but it also can sometimes turn on the anorexia, where I want to get the lowest. It's a competition to get the lowest number possible. And I've heard a lot of people say that about, being anorexic and starting to track calories to try to get healthier. It does, in fact, make it worse for some people. And I get the feel, because Layla has talked about her experience with eating disorders in the past, she is the same way. There will always be another reason to keep restricting. There will always be another reason to... My excuse for the longest time, I don't like breakfast foods. So that was the first meal I skipped. My next excuse, I can't eat too close to going to dance. I'll throw up. So that's how I ended up skipping lunch at school. Or, I forgot my money. Or whatever. Whatever excuse for lunch, I made many as I got older. And then I would do 5 hours of dance and be driving home at 9 o'clock at night and go, I just don't feel like making anything. I literally did it last night. The day I'm recording this, I literally did the, I don't feel like making anything. I really shouldn't eat anything more. Mind you, I ate throughout the day, but like I did the same like mentality of I just don't feel like it. I cannot imagine with my current brain adding another restrictive component to the chemistry in my body, which is a GLP-1. So when I saw that Layla was on one, my immediate thought was, who the hell prescribed her that for 20 pounds? Even if she did have 20 pounds to lose, which, viewing her through 4 seasons, she definitely didn't. And then I realized peptides technically can be found anywhere. They don't really need to be prescribed. Bodybuilders have been doing it for years. It's not a new thing, peptides. They're not technically drugs. And you can find them without it being illegal, without going through a physician. So the reality is Layla probably didn't go through a physician to get hers. And if she did, it was probably a telehealth thing where, you faked the numbers and you get it delivered to your door. That's the part of GLP-1s I have an issue with. The ease of access to those of us who don't have full control on our eating disorders. Because there are many people in my life, myself included, who I could see going after these GLP-1s purely to keep the high of restricting alive. And it will put them in an early grave. And I, again, fully, calling my shit here. Part of the reason I stopped coaching is because I'm struggling with mine right now. When I saw, had the realization, oh, she got it on, online. You don't have to see a physician, because I hate seeing physicians. I just do. It is like, at every size in my life, I have hated doctors because I got threatened as a kid that if nothing was wrong with me, I'd be in trouble. So the idea of going to a doctor for anything is terrifying to me. I haven't really worked through that in my brain of why that is. So telehealth is nice because no one really pays attention to me and I can get what I need out of the telehealth thing. But what I need could also be, what my eating disorder is telling me I need. Because I looked it up. And honestly, I'm lucky I'm a cheapskate. I'm lucky I want to save money right now because I fully believe in my current state. And it's not a cheat because I would be... Orthorexia typically is more about controlling every aspect of your nutrition. Like you're constantly eating clean, you're overtraining and under eating. Like you're very controlled. I have a weird mix of the two. Because when I'm anorexic, I'm also overtraining. When I am restricting so hard that... And that's what I would do with the GLP-1. 100%, I know exactly what my brain would do. And I have to be very cautious and aware of that as someone who still is struggling with my ED, years later. Especially given that I am a bigger body right now and I just want to be at my result. I would be training every day, like I am right now. And going 2 or 3 days, as long as I could get without feeling nauseous, because I also don't like throwing up. So if I could get to a point where I am on stimulants, and I don't mean medication, I just mean caffeine, a lot of caffeine, and then have no hunger cues, which I already lack a lot of, I generally could go 2 or 3 days even without the assistance of medication, without thinking about food. Especially if I'm focused on, work, which I have a lot of right now. So I would go 2 or 3 days training every day, going in a sauna every day, and not, really at all. And the meals that I do eat would be max 500 calories with a side of fruit. That is exactly what my brain would do. So I understand Layla from a unique component. She wants to get into modeling. Right? I was in dance when mine got really bad. And mine got really bad because a dance teacher told me I couldn't be in the routines that I wanted to be in at my current size. Hers got bad again after Ford denied her. There are catalysts. I'm starting to get bad right now because of social media, not because of trolls in my comments really, but because of the push, the Jubilee, Jillian Michaels versus the body positive movement or whatever it was, that video. I don't like the body positive movement because I do want to improve and change and be in a body that I like. But I also don't like Jillian Michaels and her tactics. However, I relate more in my... I don't want to say I relate more to Jillian Michaels. The way I like to do it, because I like to do things fast, I relate to Jillian Michael tactics. I would put them on myself. I wouldn't put them on my clients. Because that's the difference in, someone with an eating disorder, or at least me with an eating disorder's brain. I understand what is the right way to do it. Mentally, I do not want to do it the right way. I don't like food, really. Food is a nuisance. So doing it the right way is very, very hard when you don't like food. I don't, red meat, I get very palate fatigued on. Chicken, unless it's spicy. The only thing in my life the only two things I don't think I've ever been palate fatigued on are strawberries and rice. Like, legit. Those are the only two things that I have never, gone through an entire phase where I no longer want them to exist in my life. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm a caffeine addict, which suppressed a lot of my hunger cues because I will drink, 600 minimum milligrams a day, and I have trained my body through years of restriction to really not be hungry. I still, put it this way, the day that I'm recording this is gonna sound terrible. I can't believe I'm admitting this on the internet, but I guess admitting it is part of the process, right? The last thing I ate was around noon yesterday, the last full meal I ate, and if you can consider Disney portions at the food festival like a full meal, it was chicken, rice, and plantains, so it was a pretty decent sized meal, was at around noon yesterday. I've snacked a little bit on my pastries I made this morning, but that's not protein, that's not fiber, that's not filling things. Yeah, not hungry at all. Not at all. And that's part of the reason not falling into the pit again is hard for me. I don't realize I'm hungry until I'm nauseous. But enough about me, right? Going back to the GLP-1 of it all. I have changed my thoughts. And I don't know if, I feel like a lot of people are charting, especially after season 4 came out, for those that watch Secret Lives, a lot of people are starting to change their tune on GLP-1. They're still a tool. I haven't changed my thought there. They are still a tool. I don't think they're a cheat code. I do think they should be more controlled. I do not think 20 pounds is enough, even if Layla did have 20 pounds to lose and it wasn't, a body dysmorphia thing where she thinks she had 20 pounds to lose, which I firmly believe was the case. I'm not in Layla's body. I don't know. In my head, that viewing her, it was body dysmorphia talking on the I have 20 pounds to lose, let me get on a GLP. But I also think we do not know enough of the aftermath of long-term usage of a GLP-1, because I think the key word in Layla's conversation about her being on one was she was addicted to it. And from the science that I know, I am no expert on this at all, but from the studies I've read, the talks I've listened to when it comes to GLP-1s, peptides aren't something that you can inherently be addicted to. It's similar to weed, right? A lot of people say they're addicted to weed, but they're more addicted to the habit of smoking or the feeling they get when they smoke or have an edible or whatever your favorite form to partake in is, than they are the actual drug. However, I also don't know that it's studied enough to know that if you will have withdrawal symptoms. Because if you do have withdrawal, I think it's a valid thing to say, I'm addicted to it. Listening to the conversation in Layla's case, though, I do not think that was the case. I think it was more addicted to the high of losing weight and not having to eat and things like that. Because I totally understand that. 100%. If I went on one right now, I know this for a fact because this is the exact experience I had with Vyvanse. When I got diagnosed with ADHD, which was way too late in my life, I tried to be medicated just to see how it felt, to see if I was more productive, to see if it helped my business, to see X, Y, and Z things. And at the end of the day, I loved the productivity and the way my brain was silent and the way that I wasn't stimming all the time. And I loved all of those things. But I also knew part of my love for being on it and wanting to take it more had nothing to do with the drug itself. Had everything to do with the fact that I did not realize food existed. I literally got to a point where, because I never took it every day when I took it, but I got to a point where I would take it on Wednesday and then I would take it on Friday. But when I took it on Friday, I hadn't eaten since I took it on Wednesday. And I totally didn't even realize that was the case until I was throwing up due to, my body's nervous system being completely out of whack because of mass amounts of stimulants in my system and nothing to absorb them. So similar, but less of a harsh aftermath because it's not a stimulant, effects with GLP-1s. A lot of people have talked about the brain silencing. A lot of people have talked about how food noise nearly stops with GLP-1s. And a lot of people have talked about how it has helped with other, bad habits or addictions they've had, whether it be with sugar or whether it be with, I've heard a lot of people talk about how it helped them with weed withdrawal, not withdrawals, you don't really withdraw from weed, but they don't want alcohol anymore. So there is a mental component to these particular peptides that I don't think is well studied, but just from conjecture and stories of people using them, I don't know that we should be prescribing them as much as we are right now, even if they are FDA approved, purely because we don't know what we don't know. And how accessible they are to, and everybody is responsible for their own actions, right? If I, went and picked up stimulants again or went and picked up a GLP-1, I found the gray market or whatever, I'd be responsible for my relapse that would inevitably come out of that. I am responsible. It's no one else's fault. That's me. But also, try not to make it easy for us, I guess is my point. Why make it easy for addicts to keep diving down their addiction? And I'm not, an addiction specialist. I'm mainly speaking from my own experiences with these things and what I view in, pop culture with the obsession to be skinny. More and more people, even if they are at a good weight and body size and muscle tone or whatever, more and more people are going to keep striving to be, blown, showing, rail thin like the early 2000s. And that has its own health complications for sure. But also, they're going to do it via these GLP-1s and never get off of them. Or when they do, they're going to have mass muscle loss and have the bodies of 80-year-olds. There is a lot of concerning things, but also, with that mental aspect, you get off of it, that food noise comes right back. And you're going to be yo-yoing your way all the way the fuck back up if you don't know how to maintain it. And at some point, most people are going to have to come off of it because that shit's fucking expensive. That shit is expensive. It's one saving grace at the beginning was most people don't like injections. But now Wegovy has come out with a pill version. Fuck, man, you're making it real easy. Because that Wegovy pill is on a lot of telehealth apps too. So I struggle with this, right? As I, look forward to getting back into the fitness space and things like that when my transformation's done and keep up with all of these studies and certifications and things like that, how am I going to feel taking on clients with GLP-1s? And honestly, I think that is highly dependent on their history. A binge eater on a GLP-1, less of an issue. Someone who has lost the weight before via anorexia, orthorexia, bulimia, extreme training. Even some marathon trainers are a risky bet because they're addicted to the high of the numbers. That's what you're addicted to. You're not addicted to the peptide. You're addicted to the high of the weight loss. You're addicted to the high of, stacking up miles. You're addicted to that. There is a certain component to people who are really into fitness that are addicted to the high and the dopamine hit that comes with, obviously it's not a literal high, but there is a certain level that feels like a literal high and a dopamine hit when you see the scale going down, when you see the measurements going down, when you see the pants size going down, when you see the picture in the mirror. The mirror thing is a little bit more difficult because a lot of us also have body dysmorphia and think we look like whales. But, you know, there's a high. There's a reason why, you know, in order to encourage clients, a lot of coaches will be like, yeah, just weigh yourself in the morning when you're at your thinnest. It's your most accurate number. Like, it is your most accurate number because you're your most fasted and yada, yeah, there's science behind it, but also it's a dopamine hit to see that scale going down instead of up or staying the same. There is a high to it. And that's how people get hooked, especially when you see it going down fast. Because most of us are really, really competitive and we want to do it the fastest. We want to do it the best. We want to do it, you know, whatever. And that's the issue I have with GLP-1s right now, is they are way too accessible to people who were addicted to their eating disorder. Or even if you don't want to go as far as eating disorder, addicted to being disordered. A lot of marathon trainers, you know, they might not have an eating disorder, but they definitely do some disordered habits to get there. Bodybuilders. Talk to any bodybuilder with a brain, they'll say the sport comes with some disordered shit. But they recognize it's for a short time. That's just a part of the sport when you're in prep or whatever. And no, you can't protect everyone in the world. Like, you know, the whole coffee is hot, right? The McDonald's lawsuit, the infamous McDonald's lawsuit. You can't protect everyone from themselves. We're bridging on idiocracy territory right now. But when it comes to medications, there definitely should be more thought behind, at the individual level even, but preferably at the higher levels of people who study these things and know these things. There should definitely be more thought behind simply, is it safe? I mean, obviously, like, GLP-1s have been used for other things, not weight loss, for other things for a long time. Whether you trust the FDA or not, because a lot of people will be like, oh, it's FDA approved. Well, okay, cool. It's FDA approved, but I don't trust the FDA. They're paid off by whatever. Okay, fine. Look at other studies. The reality is like most fitness things, we don't have enough to go on with GLP-1s. They could be life-changing to the American way, especially. I don't think they're as popular or as needed in other countries because not other countries are not as sedentary and, you know, capitalistic obsessed, I guess. I don't know. At least that's the thought process as to why it's as more popular. Why Americans are, you know, fatter than other countries is we don't have walkable cities, and it depends on who you talk to, really, but at the end of the day, should GLP-1s be available as a weight loss tool? Yes. It is far less invasive than bariatric surgery. There's a decent amount of success with them when it comes to weight loss. So I'm not going to say, you know, rip it off the market. But I also, and I hate this, I'm not a pro war on drugs person. I think the war on drugs is lost. You know, let people be people, right? It's none of my business if you want to, you know, go be a crackhead. That's, you know, slightly rude to say, but like, it's none of my business. It's none of my family's business if I want to come out here and smoke a joint. Like, half of my family believes that, you know, weed's the devil because some dumbass in my family decided to not get things from reputable sources. And they're blaming weed for it. And it definitely wasn't weed. Anyways, point being is like, I'm not, at the most part, right? I don't care what you do. But at the end of the day, with GLP-1s, if you get addicted to that high of constantly losing and constantly not having to eat, like most of us with eating disorders would, you're sending yourself to an early grave. And I guess the same thing could be said about drugs too, for the most part. Maybe not weed, but like some other drugs. I don't know. I want to say regulate it more, right? Make it harder to get. Make it harder for those of us that will go out of our ways to try to abuse it. But at the end of the day, also, let people be people. Like, if you're a grown-ass adult, I don't think we should be putting... I will say, I don't think we should be putting any childhood obesity or not, I don't think any child should be on a GLP-1. I really don't. I think that is an adult decision due to some of the side effects and long-term impacts we already understand about it when it comes to muscle loss, potential bone density issues, things like that. No growing child should be on a GLP-1. And I don't even know off the top of my head, I'd have to look this up, if GLP-1s are FDA approved for under 18. I don't think they are. But in the case that they are, I think that's where I draw the line. Childhood, even if your child is obese, try to do it through means and methods of nutrition and exercise and not through medication. Unless I can't see a reason in a child it would be absolutely necessary. I really don't. Maybe, pair some of the nutrition and exercise things with therapy to work through whatever issues might be causing something like a binge eating disorder. But at the end of the day, most childhood obesity issues are a parent problem. Parents feeding them foods that are atrocious, or parents not getting exercise in with their kids, or having them do sports, or because I know not every kid is a sports kid. I 100% understand that. Can't force a kid to do sport, but you can find some sort of exercise that they like that you can go do with them as a parent. But I also understand, parents are busy and they don't have time to go do all blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, childhood obesity is a parenting problem, in my opinion. It might be a nutrition problem if we want to get into, are they poisoning us in the US? That is a deep rabbit hole that I don't wish to get down. However, with the GLP-1 of it all, I think it's an interesting time. As someone who has struggled with an eating disorder and is struggling currently, wish I didn't have to have an internal battle with myself every day of if I should go to the gray market and buy one. I wish that wasn't even an option. I wish it wasn't as easily accessible, but I can recognize my own bias in that conversation because I am struggling with it. I am struggling with taking essentially the easy way out and not using it as a tool. Well, using it as a tool not to eat at all because I don't like food. I just don't. Food is not something, like I've said 100 times on this podcast before, food and me, I'm not a foodie in any way, shape, or form. There are a couple things that I get really obsessed with baking-wise, but regular everyday food, not so much. I'm really into breads right now. I'm doing all sorts of, I've been making my own whole wheat loaves and different types of rolls, and I made pasta bowls and things like that. But banana bread. For the most part, though, food and me are not something and it has nothing to do with an eating disorder. I just don't have interest in food. I never have. And that's kind of how becoming an anorexic was so easy. Because I don't have an interest in food. But the bias against GLP-1s is, I would love to just and not have to ever think about food again. I'd still train. I love training. I don't like food. I don't like forcing the food, and I think a lot of people that were in, sports that demand them be small, like modeling, like dance, like gymnastics, like whatever. Many are not foodies, and they think food is a nuisance, and it's just a natural piece of their life or whatever. So I think Layla mentioned something about that in that episode as well, where eating is a hassle. And I agree. Eating is a hassle. And I don't know if that's an eating disorder thing. I don't know if, people who just aren't foodies think that way. But every time I watch a bodybuilder influencer, or even a lot of times with just overweight people in general, I don't relate, even though I am currently, in a bigger body, I don't relate to people that are in a bigger body because I've never been a foodie. It's never been something. Like I've said on other episodes, I didn't get in this body because of food, other than maybe desserts. I got in this body because of alcohol. And again, I've done this recently too, and it's not an abuse thing anymore. It's more of I was having fun and didn't even realize it. I have gone entire days at Epic Universe where all I did was drink alcohol. I didn't eat at all day. Because it was inconvenient and I wasn't hungry. So I definitely didn't get here because of food. And so getting out of this with food is hard. And I have a feeling a lot of people feel that way who aren't foodies and didn't really have an issue food just sucks. I'm not actively restricting a lot of the times, it just happens. And I'd hate to call it a relapse because it wasn't an active decision to do so. But maybe I need to like shame myself into eating more. I don't know. But I do know if I had unlimited cash flow like Layla or any of the other Secret Lives girls, I would absolutely go grab a tool to make it easier for me to not have to consume food. And I know Layla's not the only one. She just happens to be the one in pop culture talking about it. I related to that storyline. I do not often relate to the ladies of Secret Lives, but that one I definitely did. I think calling it an addiction is a little odd. I think that's very a Utah culture thing. Everything is an addiction. You simply struggle with it and therefore you're addicted to it. They do it a lot with porn too, because the church frowns upon porn, so therefore if you've watched it at all, you're addicted to it. Like, no, that's not how that works. Or like, my family calls me a drunk a lot because I like to have a good time. Because I happen to pick up a drink to deal with their shenanigans. Or, you have one joint and you're addicted to weed or whatever it is. That's very Utah-y of I'm struggling with getting off of this thing, so therefore I'm addicted to it. I think enjoying the high of the numbers going down is different than being addicted to the GLP-1. To my understanding, GLP-1s are not physically addictive. Are they mentally? Possibly. I could see it being a mental addiction similar to, like I said, the weed thing, where you're addicted to the habit, you're addicted to the numbers going down, you're addicted to the high you get when you think you look rail thin. The eating disorder addiction, not addiction to GLP-1. However, I could see GLP-1s definitely being a prescription medication that is abused by people with eating disorders like mine. And that's why I struggle with it, is do you actually need it, or are physicians overprescribing it? And or did you get it off the gray market, not by an actual physician, to the point that they're basically making it an open call for, EDs in a time where being rail thin is being promoted in social media, in pop culture, just everyday life. We're swinging into that, trad wife era again. Rail thin, early 2000s, heroin chic is what I believe it was called back then. Cigarette and coffee for breakfast kind of era. Perfect environment for... And it's so normalized to be on a GLP-1 too, so saying you are on one, people are just like, oh yeah, cool, let's do it together. Like, let's do our injections together. I'm not... God, I hope people aren't actually, having injection parties for their GLP-1s. I was definitely being a little overboard on that one, using a little of hyperbole, but God, I hope that's not actually happening. My point being is it is very normalized to be on one, so that people don't even think about the impacts of using it for something like, I need to lose the extra 10 pounds. The impact of the people who never are done losing and yet can get on these things. Do we see, an uptick in ED-related deaths due to GLP-1? I fear we might. I fear in current pop culture standards, where there is a shift away from body positivity because it has jumped off the fucking cliff into insanity land, and a shift back towards shaming, bullying, Jillian Michaels' Biggest Loser style era, on top of... instead of muscle mommies, we want to be real thin, Pilates arms, skinny talk. I fear that death toll is going to climb. But will they admit that it's due to GLP-1 abuse? I don't know. Or will they just call it an eating disorder? Because both can, in fact, be coexistent. It's an interesting... We don't have enough. We don't know. It is an interesting thing to speculate on what we're going to see. I don't love how easily accessible they are, but at the end of the day, grown adults making grown adult decisions are grown adults making grown adult decisions. As someone who struggles with an eating disorder, I can see why people want it to be more regulated, but as, someone who's been in the fitness space long enough to know that even before it was FDA approved, people were getting peptides, from the gray market to begin with, people will get it if they want to get it. So I don't think regulating it more, look at drugs. Regulating it more is not really going to change anything. It'll maybe just make it, more people end up in jail for getting a GLP-1 off the streets instead of, opioids. Interesting thought bubble. What do you think the future of GLP-1s? Are you pro GLP-1? Are you anti GLP-1? Leave that in the comments below because I am curious. I want to have conversations with people. There might be plenty of people who know more about this topic than I do. Because I know very little. I did a lot of research on it in the early days of it being used for weight loss, but I haven't really kept up with the studies and new aftermaths. And I know there's a lot of muscle loss issues that come with it as well if you're not training with it, but training with it is a very delicate balance. So there's a lot of things that, I might be blissfully unaware of. I'm just speaking mostly from, listening to Layla's story on Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, my own story of I am really, really struggling with my eating disorder right now. It is hard, especially where I am solo a lot right now, to not eat for several days. Because either it's the inconvenience of cooking, it's whatever it is. There are many things that are floating through my brain right now. Wanting to make a cosplay and actually be able to fit it properly, but have it be small, Being in the hobby of cosplay in general has, kind of pushed me on that line. And part of the reason I haven't been making new outfits is because I didn't like the way any of my outfits previously fit me and things like that. So it is an interesting time. But what do you think? Leave that in the comments below. Pro GLP-1, anti GLP-1. Have you had experience with it personally? I know, friends of mine have said that it made them sick and things like that. What is your experience with it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Would you choose it over bariatric surgery? Whatever it is that we want to talk about when it comes to GLP-1s, leave that in the comments below because I am interested to see what other people think. And if you were concerned, if you're a fellow Secret Lives of Mormon Wives watcher, with the fact that Layla was capable of getting on one and her struggle with it. Do you think it's addictive? That kind of stuff. But that was today's chaos. Less chaos, more fuckery. Definitely more fuckery. GLP-1s as a whole are very, very fuckery. So, yeah. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But for now, I hope you go get into some chaos and stay out and away of the fuckery.